remember a moment where I was really excited about how clever I was.
Oh, Dave, it's interesting to see that your delusions include delusions about yourself. Hi, I'm Jenny, and allegedly, this is Jen's Little Corner.
Look at the word job. Do you know where that comes from?
No.
Well, there's a book in the Old Testament called Job, but it's spelled J-O-B, and we're supposed to think it's two different things.
That, Dave, is because they are two different things. The word job comes from the phrase job of work from the 1550s, meaning task or piece of work. The specific sense of work done for pay was first recorded in the 1650s. It is thought that the word is a derivative of gob, meaning a mass or lump, circa 1400s, but this is unverified. The word Job, on the other hand, is a translation from the Old Hebrew, Iobi, which means hated or persecuted, as in persecuted of God.
But, you know, when they say it's a job or a Job is an affliction to make you want to curse the Most High.
I find it disingenuous here how Dave tries to switch around the meanings. As I already stated, Job means to be the persecuted one. You are persecuted of God, which is in line with the biblical story of God persecuting Job to see if he can break him. There is no thing of Job persecuting or being negative towards God. Job maintains his praise of God throughout the entire situation. So to switch it around to say that Job means to decry God just absolutely makes no sense at all. But then again, most of what comes out of Dave's mouth makes no sense whatsoever.
That's what these things are, basically. You know, they're really there to keep us busy, to keep us occupied. That's why they call them occupations and busyness. Yeah, it's and this is where it gets a bit dark. It's really all about keeping the herd still and quiet while they march us off to the slaughterhouse.
Really, Dave? I find it kind of disturbing that you would think that we're being led by the hand to the slaughterhouse. In our Western society, we have a lot of freedoms that we tend to take for granted. You notice that we do tend to use those freedoms when we feel oppressed by the so-called elite of our society. So we will rise up in protest. We will vote people out. We will take back our rights for ourselves. We have court systems. We have elections. We are not being led by a leash to rotating knives in a hallway. We have freedom. We have liberty. Now, granted, there are people in the world who do not have those freedoms and liberty, but we have them. And the fact that you think we don't, or you think that we need to go out, hide out in the woods to have those freedoms and liberties, I find deeply disturbing.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
You know, because if you know, how many people here? About 70 million people in this country. You know, imagine 70 million people doing their own thing, going their own way, living in the woods or living however they want. Imagine how difficult it is to round people up and kill them.
Frankly, Dave, I don't want to imagine that. And the fact that you do seems to highlight to me a need for you to go and get some major amounts of therapy.
You know, you have to standardize people. You have to make sure they all do the same thing, and they all get trapped in the same lane, basically, same train tracks, so that they can just pick you off easily because it's all streamlined. And that's what society is. And you know, it's and I was just talking about this to somebody the other day, that that most people aren't ready for the real truth.
Would that be your so-called truthiness?
Pursuit of truthiness, pursuit of truthiness, pursuit of truthiness.
Oxen's done pursuit of truthiness. Oxen's done pursuit of truthiness. Oxen's done pursuit of truthiness. Bigger is better.
That doesn't make any sense, you know.
Let's just go back to it.
You know, there's a big dark truth to this world, and yeah, there's some people not ready for flat Earth, and some people aren't ready for, you know, the legal system or the medical system. But there's a dark truth to this world, and somebody put enslavement. It's not about enslavement. It's not about enslavement. That's just one step along the way. Yeah. Enslavement is necessary, as I said, to keep you in your lane so that they know where you are and how to deal with you. But it's literally genocide. It's about getting rid of most of us and only leaving their bloodline around.
Okay, so Dave thinks we are allegedly being enslaved by the man or the establishment and being led irrevocably towards genocide. Let us sink in. He thinks that our governments, all our governments, are leading us down the path of genocide. I want to call him an arsehole. I really do. And I know you want to hear me call him an arsehole. But I think Dave is just stupid.
It's interesting. You talk about slavery. I was talking to somebody about where slavery came from the other day, and
It's Slavic.
Slavic, yes, it's from the Slavs.
That's it.
That's where the word came from.
And here, Dave gets his etymology wrong again. Slave comes from the old French esclave, or from the original Latin sclavus, or slave, so it's always meant slave. Of course, the original Latin was abbreviated to Slav, which may be where Dave thought it came from the Slavic. But there is no Slavic in it. It is originally derived from the Latin, and then into the French, and then into Old English, and into Modern English.
And I mentioned in one of our talks that the Slavs are one branch of the Canaanites.
Oh, Dave. Now a history link between the Canaanites and the Slavs. This is actually just a bald-faced assertion on the part of Dave. An irrelevant one too, given there's the etymological link between the Slavs and the word slave is wrong. Dave, you're walking into arsehole territory.
Now, somebody I was talking to mentioned, well, you know, if you look at the Old Testament, it says it talks about slavery all the time there. So, you know, the Most High condones slavery.
But the Bible does endorse slavery. It outright encourages it. Slavery is seen as a social institution and endorsed in such a way that it is good in the eyes of God for you to have slaves. And that slaves should obey their masters in everything. The Bible lays down laws about how you can treat your slaves, how long you can beat them for, and how close to death you can leave them. The Bible objectively encourages slavery.
Well, what I basically said to him was that, well, actually no, because there was no such thing as this slavery back in those days.
How dare you, you absolute fucking asshole. Dave, you just denied the suffering of generations and generations of slaves. What kind of fucking asshole are you? Denial of people's suffering is the fucking worst thing you can do, in my book. You, sir, are an arsehole. You deserve to be called an arsehole because you are a complete and utter fucking arsehole. Now, I bet you're going to go into some diatribe about how indentured servitude isn't slave. And this has been debunked hundreds of times by people who are much better at this than me. But I'm going to go through it again, just for the people who might think that maybe you have a point to make in here. But you, sir, are a complete and utter cockwombling arsehole.
And what it was actually servitude.
I fucking called it, you arsehole. Indentured servitude is still fucking slavery. But the ancient Hebrews did more than just indentured servitude. They did full-blown, complete, you are property, slavery.
And it was a completely different thing.
No, it wasn't. You cock-gobbling arsehole.
And it was actually a blessing.
Blessing? Being an unpaid labourer forced to do whatever the fuck somebody else wants to do is a blessing? You fucking asshole.
And, you know, they couldn't really get their heads around that, but it was a blessing. So I'll put you through a scenario here, okay? You imagine the Israelites would go to war with, let's say, a city. There was a city called Shechem, and literally what happened was there was a guy from Shechem, the son of the chief, who took the Israelites' the only sister, Dinah, who was apparently 14 years old. He took this girl and raped her, and then decided he wanted to marry her. So the Israelites went to war with the people of Shechem, and killed all the men in the city. Okay, so what would happen after that is that the women and children would become servants, and that's the Christian translators translated that word to slaves.
You fucking asshole. God told the Israelites to go and commit genocide on these people, but take the women and children. Now, these women and children weren't kept as servants. They were slaves. Some of them sex slaves, and especially as women were considered anyone from about 8, 12 up. Absolutely horrendous. Fucking dreadful. You asshole to suggest that these were just servants. These were slaves. And the young men who weren't killed, who were young enough that they weren't killed, were often castrated and then kept as slaves. They had no rights. They had no value. You are an arsehole to suggest otherwise.
But it's actually servants. Okay, so the women would become maid servants. The young men will become page boys and stable hands and things like that. But if you think about it, Israelites are in a war with this city. The men get killed. All the spoil, all the valuables get taken. Everything valuables taken. All the houses and the city gets burned down and whatever. Okay, what would happen to let's say you with a couple of children? You know, if you lived from that city, you've got your father and your husband are dead. You know, you've got no belongings. You've got nowhere to live. So what would happen is the Israelites would take you as a servant, and you wouldn't be treated as a slave. You'd be a servant. And if you look at the Old Testament, it tells you that you don't treat the widow or the fatherless badly. You treat them with respect. You treat, so what would happen is that they would go into servitude.
You fucking arsehole! You absolute fucking arsehole! How could you even think that? Oh, we've liberated you from your home and your city and your husband and your sons, and now you can work for us for nothing forever, and I'll pass you on to my children. This is not generosity or goodness of heart. You go in there, you kill all the people, you take all the shit, you take the people that are left, and you use them, and you abuse them. That is slavery. That is the horrible stuff that was done in these times. And it was done by the ancient Hebrews, by the Israelites, by other people as well, not just them, but they did it. It is documented in the Bible that it was done, and you are a denier of facts here. You are a complete and utter asshole.
Now, while I was thinking about this, the word Jubilee kept coming into my head. I was like, Jubilee? What was Jubilee? So I started looking at reading the book of Jubilees, and it dawned on me. Every 7 years, there's a Jubilee. It's a year of release. So every 7 years, all prisoners are released, all debts are paid, nullified, yeah. All property is returned to those who it belonged to in the first place. So literally anybody going into servitude would actually, after 7 years, be sent home with everything that they've collected up till that point, you know, and they'll be able to go back to their own city and start again.
You mean the city that was ransacked and destroyed and they were stolen from and turned into slaves from? That city, you arsehole? Is that the city you're talking about here? That they can just go back to after 7 years? I think you need a fucking history lesson and a biblical lesson about how this shit worked. Because you, mate, are a complete and utter asshole. And I've had enough listening to your bullshit. But I am going to explain to you and to everybody else how this worked. Because you, mate, are a fucking asshole and you can just fuck off. Exodus 21 verses 2 to 6. When you buy a male Hebrew slave, and notice here how it says male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, but in the 7th he shall go out a free person, without debt. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. So if you become a slave, as a Hebrew slave, your wife becomes a slave too. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. So if you're going to take the option of going out after 7 years, you lose your wife and kids. But there's a way around this. If you as a slave declare, I love my master, my wife and my children, I will not go out and be a free person. Then his master shall bring him before God, and he shall be brought to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him for life. So, if you're a young Hebrew man and you got through your 7 years and you didn't get married, or you weren't given a wife by your master, you can go free. It's fine. That's great. You can go free. And if you're a married man who became a slave and your wife and your kids became slaves, after 7 years, you can all go free. Yeah, you can go free. It's all good. It's great. The fact that you've spent 7 years in complete servitude and doing what you have to do, what you've been told to do, and you have no free will for those 7 years, it doesn't matter, because you're free now. You're fine. It's great. It's all dandy. But what if your master realised that there was a little catch here? You know, you were a single young man when you were made a slave, and now he goes, I've got some female slaves here. Why don't I offer one up as a wife? Hey dude, guess what? Your 7 years is up. Go free. Oh, wonderful. I'll go get my wife. No, she's mine. You go free, she stays. But I don't want to lose my wife. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll take you to the priest. We'll get a little thing done with your ear and all. And then you can be my slave forever and you can keep your wife. How about that? I couldn't offer anything fairer than that. Kind of see how this is still slavery? And this is just how they treated the young Hebrew men. Wait until you hear about the young Hebrew women. Exodus 21 verses 7 to 11. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. So no jubilee for female slaves. If she does not please her master, who designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dealt unfairly with her. If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her as a daughter. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish the food, clothing, or marital rights of the first wife. And if he does not do these three things for her, she shall go out without debt, without payment of money. So if you're a young Hebrew female slave who your father has sold into this slavedom, you don't get a jubilee. You don't get to go free. Well, not unless your master gets a bit sick of you and treats you badly. Or even worse, if he gives you to his son. And then it doesn't even matter if the son treats you badly, because it's all about who you were first originally given to. Of course, if you're given to the son, you're treated as a daughter, and fathers can enslave their daughters to somebody else. So you can sell them on. They're still slaves, they're property, they're chattel. You may do with them as you please. But also remember that as a young female Hebrew slave, you're also somewhat considered a wife, with wifely duties. You're a concubine. You're a sex slave. One of the myriad of wives and sex slaves and concubines that they had back then. This is fucking disgusting. But we all know that. This was way back then. It was different. Doesn't make it any more moral. But it's worse. If you weren't a Hebrew, it was much, much worse. Leviticus chapter 25 verses 44 to 46. As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire these slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you, and from their families that are with you, who have been born in your land, and they may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves. But as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness. So as you can see here, if you weren't lucky enough to be a Hebrew, but unlucky enough to end up being a slave, you had no rights. You were property, you were chattel, and you were handed down from generation to generation, assuming you lived that long. I mean, let's face it, your master could beat you to within an inch of your life, and as long as you took longer than 3 days to die, that was perfectly fine. This was okay. This was proper treatment. This was slavery, pure and simple. Slavery as bad as any modern slavery, in some ways worse. There's no denying this, Dave. You're an arsehole. This was slavery. And I don't care what you think about flat earth and all that other crap. I don't care that you drink your own urine. That's all up to you. But denying the suffering of people makes you the biggest arsehole of them all. You are a complete and utter arsehole. Now thank you guys for watching. It's been wonderful to have you here. Please like and subscribe. Check out my other content. And remember, don't choke on the selfie stick.